Hello and welcome to the program. I'm your host, Cheryl Keck. For the next 2 hours, we will be taking you on a fascinating journey into the world of gangs, from Detroit to Durham, from Phoenix to Florida, and beyond. We will be presenting an overview on criminal street gangs, ideology, recruiting, membership, and initiation. We will also explore the history of gangs, major national gangs, gang identifiers, their colors, tattoos, clothes, hand signals, and graffiti. We will also cover criminal investigation, suppression, and prosecution of gangs. And we will show you how communities are teaming up with law enforcement to drive gangs and gang-related crimes, including drug trafficking and violence, out of their neighborhoods. And that's not all. Toward the end of our program, we will be giving you the opportunity to phone in your questions about gangs to a live panel of experts. But make no mistake, we are warning you that there will be many visual examples of the graphic violence associated with criminal street gangs. But through that and everything else we are about to present to you, you will gain a much better understanding about the problem of gangs. So grab a pad and pen and get ready as we take you through our special expanded training today titled Gangs, an American Evolution.
Oh man, he's crazy, you know. I wanted people to be like, to look at me and be like, oh no man, don't mess with him, you know. He rolls deep.
They're causing so much crime. They're robbing people and they're breaking in their houses and they're shooting innocent people and they're shooting each other.
Now we need to focus on giving young people, especially young men in our cities, better options than apathy or gangs or jail.
Like when I started gangbanging when I was 10,
it's constant pressure on them. Just lets them know that they can't get away with some stuff and they're going to have to think twice about doing it.
They can't do anything about it if we don't stop.
We're always going to have to look over their shoulder for us.
I don't like the cops, I just don't like the law, you know?
I would like now to introduce one of our expert law enforcement trainers who specializes in gangs, Sergeant Harold Rochon of the Detroit Police Department. Welcome and thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I've been a police officer for approximately 20 years. I've been assigned to the gang squad of the Detroit Police Department, and currently I'm assigned to the Organized Crime Gang Division. I also instruct and lecture all over the country.
And you are also a trainer for the multi-jurisdictional Counter-Drug Task Force training program, and you train for us all over the nation in classes for gangs. And we are bringing you this broadcast today in conjunction with MCTFT and the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center. So, you ready? Let's go. I wanted everyone to first know that Harold is an author of a very fascinating book on gangs. It's titled Terrorists in Designer Jeans, and it gives a very unique perspective on gangs. And your take on this is that gangs are no different than terrorists.
Absolutely. When you look at the government's definition of terrorism, and where it talks about assassinations, kidnapping, hijackings, gang members are involved in the exact same crimes. Their ultimate goals may be different, but the way they achieve those goals are the exact same way as terrorist groups do. And so I want you to look at them as not just gang members, but terrorists.
Well, when you say the word terrorist, though, you have to admit that after September 11th, when you say terrorist, everybody pretty much has a pretty good idea of what a terrorist looks like. But when the average American citizen thinks of a gang member, they've got to have that stereotypical image in their head of the clothes, the wrappers, the fancy cars, jeans, clothes, and bling-blings and all that. So they're not really probably making that connection, gang, terrorist.
And they're not making the connection because they're not looking at the activity that they're involved in. Right now, the government is primarily looking at the Al-Qaeda and terrorist groups overseas. But when you start looking at the activity that these gang members are involved in right here in our own backyards, you'll notice the similarities. They do the exact same thing as the terrorist groups.
Well, there are legal definitions of what a gang is that help support your ideology of that and the title of your book. Why don't we go ahead and talk about what is the legal definition of a gang?
The legal definition of a gang are 3 or 4 individuals involved in criminal activity who have identifiers, have gang names, colors, and symbols. My specific definition is 2 or more. And the reason that I say 2 or more is because I want us to take a look at these individuals involved in these activities when they first start, not wait until it's out of control and then say that you have a gang issue, when the fact of the matter is it starts somewhere. It's like having a cancer cell. Does one cancer cell mean you have cancer? Absolutely. Do 2 people that are involved in the same activity, wearing the same colors, the same monikers, if they're involved in the same thing, can we consider them gang members? Yes. And when we do, we attack the problem right away.
Okay. Now, in order to move forward in understanding gangs, we first must look back and take a look at the history of gangs. Harold, why don't you run us through that? This has been going on longer than many people might think.
Well, gangs have been in existence primarily since the beginning of time, mostly for ethnic reasons. They begin to band together, and once they banded together, they propagate some sort of agenda of some kind. And today, they've grown into wearing colors, and ethnicity has nothing to do with it because it has everything to do with the mighty dollar.
Okay. Well, as we mentioned before, when we look a lot about and think a lot about gangs, we think about the stereotypical image of a gang member, as we just said, the colors, the fancy clothes, everything from the rap music to the bandanas to the luxury cars, bright, shiny jewelry. But as you are about to see, the stereotype does not necessarily fit the mold, because the fact is there are many faces of gangs. Well, okay, so far we've covered the legal definition of a gang, the history of gangs, and the many faces of gangs, as we just saw. Now we are about to get inside the mind of a gang member. We traveled to Detroit, where we talked candidly, one-on-one, with a 16-year-old gangbanger. We also shadowed a gang's task force agent to learn his strategy in fighting the problem of gangs.
When I found out about the gangs, that there was groups like that where, you could like that, they different colors, different set, I liked the way they dressed at first. I thought it was cool. Then I was like, well, I'm getting beat up already, why can't I help? I met one of the Sureños, I liked, how he acted, everything, how he treated his game, everything, how he talked about it, it made it seem like, oh, that's the shit, that's the life I want to live, that's the life I want to live, that's the life I want to live. I wanted people to be like, to look at me and be like, oh, no, man, don't mess with him, he rolls deep, oh, man, he's crazy, How do I make money? Go stealing radios, stealing people, like robbing people. Usually wait till they get their checks, cash it, wait outside the store and rob them. Now that I know how it all goes, how it feels when you shoot someone, how it feels when you rob someone and stuff. How does it feel? Well, depends. Like when you rob someone, it feels like, well, hey, he's that person. I was too smart for him, I was too smart. Like I could, I got that street mentality. If that's what the streets are, if that's what the streets are, I could handle it. I could make easy money like that. But if we get into like a shootout with the cops in the streets, we usually probably would have better guns than them. The cops, it's not like, I don't like the cops, I just don't like the law, you know? The cops could be cool as long as they're cool with me. I respect them every time, you know? But we don't want to take over the people that ain't got nothing to do with it, you know? We just want to, like the other gangs to know, you know, we're the ones that are running this place, not y'all, you know? This is our city, you know? You're going to come to our city, y'all got to, you know, respect us. Dude, they can't do anything about it if we don't stop. I do, but then I don't, you know, because I'm, like, used to this life. And here in Detroit, it's just not like they'll kill you, you know. If you could leave, they'll let you leave out, but depends, you know. It's not like, but they'll treat you like, oh, man, you know, he got scared. That's why he couldn't hang with us no more. He's scared, you know, he left. My mom, you know, she'd rather see me, if I get into some problems with the law, she'd rather see me in jail than to be back in the streets. Because she knows that in the streets, I'm going to end up dead.
Unfortunately, he'll end up dead or in prison.
Robert Sanchez sees firsthand on a daily basis the magics of the gang world performing their ultimate disappearing act. He admits Magic has enough tricks up his sleeve to keep him going as a gangbanger for a while.
That kid's smart, though. He's a leader. He's going to end up being a leader. He's got people following him.
But Sanchez knows gangbangers like Magic, who are on a menacing mission to monopolize the streets of Southwest Detroit, are following him down a dead-end road.
He's going to end up in prison, or the people who are following him are going to end up dead in prison. It happens everywhere.
Sanchez is a task force agent with the Detroit Police Department and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms.
There are two different types of gangs in Detroit, really. There's the Southwest Detroit Latino, Hispanic gangs who wear the colors and do all the typical gang things you see on TV. And then you got the dope gangs. They're completely separate.
But make no mistake, where there are gangs, there are drugs. And where there are drugs, there are crimes, violent crimes.
I'd say 90% of the homicides, rapes, robberies in Detroit is over dope.
Sanchez has the stories to back up the statistics. All senseless, all tragic, but also real. They seem surreal.
There's a bad dope deal went down, and they ripped off one of the but they were all friends in the same gang. But they wanted to rip another one off, and they shot him in the head. They cut up all his limbs and body parts, his head, his arms. And when the police got there, they tried to cover it up. They threw him in the dryer. That was pretty bad. Because the kid that got chopped up wasn't a bad kid. He just got caught up. Another one is when they burned down a house. A couple of babies got burned. The bad guy that was going to burn down a house ended up setting himself on fire. Just a lot of drive-bys, a lot of shootings. There was an innocent girl killed a few years back, standing in her, she worked at a donut shop. She was standing in her window watching the fight go down, and she caught a bullet.
For a gangbanger, it's all in a day's work.
The bottom line is it's just a business.
The 4th precinct. 9105 killer. In the RA just happened. Just 2 men armed with shotguns just robbed me. I'm calling.
Sanchez specializes in Latino gangs. His beat, Southwest Detroit. It's his home. It's where he grew up. And it's where he now sees more kids than ever before growing up in gangs.
Well, a lot of them are born into it. You end up knowing them. I mean, I've been in Southwest for over 10 years. And you end up knowing them since they're 10 years old. Now they're 20. So, you just end up growing up with them, seeing them getting in and out of prison, and so they're just born into it.
Born into a life of crime and violence that is suffocating society of its safety.
They're causing so much crime. They're robbing people, and they're breaking in their houses, and they're shooting innocent people, and they're shooting each other.
So how do cops like Sanchez fight back? It's a strategy that mirrors that old saying, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. Sometimes Sanchez befriends gang members like Magic. Other times he goes undercover, The way he sees it, infiltration leads to information, the type of intel that is instrumental in turning investigations into indictments, a tactic that's helping Sanchez take back the turf of the hardworking, law-abiding citizens who live here.
Just keeping the intel with gangs is probably the biggest thing to do. Find out who their family is, because if they're truly in a gang, then their brothers were gang members, they're gang members, their kids would be gang members. That's what we see a lot in Detroit.
You gain the intel, he says, by paying attention and doing your homework.
If you know what you're looking for, if you know what kind of tattoo they're supposed to have, or how they're wearing their hat, or where their belt's at, or what kind of clothes they're wearing, or what colors they have on, who they're with, indicators, identifiers, what they look, talk, their codes.
They're red, lant counts are red, the Slovenians are blue. They'll come through, cross their name out, put 187 basically, we're going to kill Little Roach. That's what they're trying to say.
Graffiti is how gangs communicate, mark their territories, and mock and threaten their rival gangs.
It's basically the newspaper for the gangs. You can read who hates who and who's going after who just by looking at the walls.
But if you don't keep up with it, you lose it. Just like with any language, it's a language.
Basically it says if we catch you over here, you're dead.
Keeping up with it also means keeping a camera handy. That's why Sanchez and his predecessors are leaving a legacy of pictures that are recording the days and the lives and the deaths of gang members. Kodak moments that have mounted into piles of photo albums like this one.
It got handed down to us from older officers who moved on or got promoted. They started a gang file.
Files that have been handed down to a new generation of detectives who are driven to make a difference.
Carried down a tradition, I guess, within Southwest Detroit. And over the last 12, 15 years, it's become an invaluable tool.
An investment officers have made on their own time, on their own dime.
Just taking Polaroids with their own money and their own time, develop them on their own salaries, and just categorizing them by gangs, by last names, by nicknames.
An investment that's paid off.
People from all around ask us about our photos, our files, our gang files. If some agency's looking for a picture or a nickname, there's a pretty good chance that we'd have it.
Sometimes the pictures help ID kids on the streets.
We get the kids a lot when they're small. And a lot of times they're not in the system they're not fingerprinted, and they've never been arrested, they've never had any contact with the law except us. All we did was stop and investigate, and take pictures.
Pictures that sometimes bring closure to cases at the county morgue.
If it's a John Doe or a Jane Doe, you could go out, show people the pictures, just a face, see if we could ID them.
Most of the gang members and wannabes have no problem striking a pose for the camera. In fact, he says many gang members are happy to publicly pledge their allegiance to their gang.
We never had any problems. People refusing to take them or anything.
But eventually the pictures come back to haunt them because they're used to hunt them down.
Well, a lot of these gang members, what they do is when they shoot at each other, nobody makes police reports on it. If they're shooting each other, they'll just say some guy gets shot on a corner, or he'll just say, well, I don't know, I'm walking down the street and I felt a stinging in my leg. So what do you have?
But what they had was the intel from the photos and the files. Intel that was about to pay off big time.
We had a string of them, probably 15 of them, of shooting at each other, but no victim versus complainant type incident. So we were able to interview a lot of them because we knew a lot of them through the files and just through the streets, and they would admit that they had a gun, but they didn't shoot, or their buddy had a gun and he didn't shoot. We basically got them to admit that they were in possession of a weapon. A lot of them were convicted felons.
Bingo.
Right there, you can indict them on a federal charge, a felony firearm, or there's a bunch of other charges you can go if you're a convicted felon in possession of a firearm. Just being in possession is a charge, even though they say they didn't shoot. Or if they shot back in retaliation. We got a lot of them tripped up that way.
In fact, it was one of their biggest gang breakdowns ever. So to what does Sanchez credit that success?
Follow-up, commitment.
And sometimes a computer. Gang members communicate online, so Sanchez often logs on, hitching a ride on the superhighway right into their world.
Gangs on the internet is like graffiti. A lot of these little internet sites have shout-out boxes or forums you could go onto. Or sometimes they even say where they're going to shoot each other. Or, let's meet here and we'll have a fight or a shootout or whatever. You know, 13, like, their nicknames, Little Crow. This was a good bus here.
Sanchez sees the computer as a long arm of the law, reaching the bad guys without tipping his hand.
It's just another investigative tool that I don't think they're totally aware that we're aware of it.
But what he is all too aware of are the lives gang members are stealing, especially the children being robbed of their childhoods.
The youngest gang member that I've come in contact with was probably about 5 or 6. He was in the cash flow posse in Detroit, you know, wearing the colors, throwing the signs. Ended up dead at, I want to say he was 21. By then he had been shot 11 times, stabbed like 4 times. He walked around with a colostomy bag on him, still robbing people. And they robbed the wrong person, like I said, and got shot in the face and dead. Good guy, they buried him in a cardboard box or a wooden box. And you know what? He was like any other kid, like Magic earlier, would talk to me. Personally, all the police officers knew him. But you just sometimes, you have charged him over the years with felonies, but he gets out, you know, vicious cycle. You get charged, you do your time, you get out, you do more crimes. You get charged, you do your time, you get out. There was no way out for him.
But what's the way out of this vicious cycle?
The court system. Judges. People get charged with 4 or 5 armed robberies, picked out on armed robberies, known gang members. I'll go there to testify, say yes, they are gang members. This is why this so-and-so and so. The judges will give them like 10%, $10,000 bond, 10%. What are you going to do? You did our job. It's up to the courts.
And it's up to him to keep holding his end of the bargain with diligence, determination, and dedication.
You have to want to do it. You have to actually care.
Multi-jurisdictional counter-drug task force training program, and you train for us all over the nation in classes for gangs. And we are bringing you this broadcast today in conjunction with MCTFT and the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center. So, you ready? Let's go. I wanted everyone to first know that Harold is an author of a very fascinating book on gangs. It's titled Terrorists in Designer Genes, and it gives a very unique perspective on gangs. And your take on this is that gangs are no different than terrorists.
Absolutely. When you look at the government's definition of terrorism
and graffiti, we will also cover criminal investigation, suppression, and prosecution of gangs. And we will show you how communities are teaming up with law enforcement to drive gangs and gang-related crimes, including drug trafficking and violence, out of their neighborhoods. And that's not all. Toward the end of our program, we will be giving you the opportunity to phone in your questions about gangs to a live panel of experts. But make no mistake, we are warning you that there will be many visual examples of the graphic violence associated with criminal street gangs. But through that and everything else we are about to present to you, you will gain a much better understanding about the problem of gangs. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm your host, Cheryl Keck. For the next 2 hours, we will be taking you on a fascinating journey into the world of gangs. From Detroit to Durham, from Phoenix to Florida, and beyond. We will be presenting an overview on criminal street gangs, ideology, recruiting, membership, and initiation. We will also explore the history of gangs, major national gangs, gang identifiers, their colors, tattoos, clothes, hand signals, gangs. So grab a pad and pen and get ready as we take you through our special expanded training today titled Gangs, an American Evolution.
Oh man, he's crazy, you know. I wanted people to be like, to look at me and be like, oh no man, don't mess with him, you know. He rolls deep.
They're causing so much crime. They're robbing people and they're breaking in their houses and they're shooting innocent people and they're shooting each other.
Now we need to focus on giving young people, especially young men in our cities, better options than apathy or gangs or jail.
Like when I started gang banging, I was 10.
It's constant pressure on them. Just lets them know that they can't get away with some stuff and they're going to have to think twice about doing it.
They can't do anything about it if we don't stop.
They're always going to have to look over their shoulder for us.
I don't like the cops, I just don't like the law, you know?
I would like now to introduce one of our expert law enforcement trainers who specializes in gangs, Sergeant Harold Rochon of the Detroit Police Department. Welcome and thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I've been a police officer for approximately 20 years. I've been assigned to the gang squad of Detroit Police Department, and currently I'm assigned to the Organized Crime Gang Division. I also instruct and lecture all over the country.
And you are also a trainer for the